internal structure of human heart. Internally, the human heart is divided into four chambers. Out of these four chambers, two chambers are present on the anterior side and two chambers are present on the posterior side. The anterior chamber are known as auricles, and that auricular chamber is separated or divided into two chambers or two compartments with the help of a vertical septum. Means due to the presence of vertical septum in the auricular chamber, the auricular chamber is divided into two subchambers, that is right auricle and left auricle. And the vertical septum which divides the auricular chamber into right and left is due to the interauricular septum. Means interauricular septum divides the auricular chamber into right and left auricular chambers. The posterior narrow chamber of the heart, which is known as ventricle, and that ventricle is also divided into two compartments or two chambers with the help of a vertical septum. That vertical septum is known as interventricular septum, and due to that interventricular septum, the ventricular chamber is divided into right ventricle and left ventricle. And in between the auricles and ventricles, a horizontal septum is present, and that horizontal septum mainly consists of some 50% role of auricles or 50% structure of auricles and 50% structure of. That's why that septum, horizontal septum, which is present in between the auricle and ventricle, auriculoventricular septum. Means due to the presence of auricular ventricular septum, the structure of heart is divided into anterior chamber, that is auricle, and posterior chamber, which is known as ventricles. Due to the AV septum or auriculoventricular septum, the heart is divided into auricles and ventricles. The auricular chamber, which consists of right auricle and left auricle, are the receiving chambers which receives the blood which is coming from different parts of the body and from the lungs. Means the right auricle receives the impure blood or deoxygenated blood from superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and the coronary sinus. Means with the help of these three major branches of veins, the right auricle receives the impure blood in it. At the same time, the left auricle also receives the oxygenated or pure blood from the lobe of lungs with the help of two pairs of pulmonary veins. And these two pairs of pulmonary veins are the only exceptional veins in the venous system or in the circulatory system of man, because these carries the pure blood from lungs to the left auricle of the heart. Means these are the exceptional veins. Generally, the veins carries the impure blood, but here the pulmonary veins, means two pairs of pulmonary veins which originates from the lobes of lungs and it enters into the left auricles, which carries the pure blood. And that's why these are called as the exceptional veins which carries the opposite function. At the same time, the pulmonary trunk or pulmonary artery is the artery, major artery, which is also the exceptional artery, which carries which carries the impure blood from right ventricles to the lobes of lungs for oxygenation, and that is also the exceptional artery which carries its opposite functions, because we have generally seen that the arteries carries pure blood, but here the pulmonary artery or trunk carries the impure blood from right ventricles up to the lobes of lungs or up to the lungs for its oxygenation. Means these two two blood vessels, that is pulmonary artery or pulmonary trunk and pulmonary veins, conducts its opposite functions. The auricular chamber, that is right auricle and left auricle, receives the blood which is coming from different parts of the body. Right auricle receives the impure blood which is coming from superior vena cava, inferior vena cava and coronary sinus. Means impure blood, total impure blood or deoxygenated blood from the body is poured into the right auricular chamber. At the same time, the left auricle receives the pure or oxygenated blood which is coming from the lobes of lungs with the help of two pairs of pulmonary veins. And that's why the auricular chamber is known as receiving chambers. Why auricles are known as receiving chambers? Because it only receives the blood which is coming from different parts of the body, and that's why that auricular chamber is known as receiving chamber of the heart. That's it only receives the blood. That's why the walls of the auricles are thin as compared to the walls of the hearts or walls of the ventricles. The auriculoventricular septum, which is the horizontal septum present between the auricle and ventricle, possesses the openings, and that openings are known as auriculoventricular apertures or auriculoventricular openings. The posterior chamber of the heart, which is also consists of right ventricle and left ventricle. And these two ventricles are separated from each other with the help of a vertical septum. That vertical septum is known as interventricular septum. Right ventricle ventricular chamber are the propelling chamber. Means it forces the blood towards the oxygenation, and one chamber of the ventricle pours the blood toward different parts of the body. The right and left sides are totally separated from each other. There is no communication between right and left side in the heart. The right side of the human heart deals with the impure or deoxygenated blood, while the left side of the heart mainly consists of pure or oxygenated blood. Means there is no mixing of blood is carried in the structure of heart, because right and left sides are separated, completely separated from each other due to the presence of two vertical septum, that is interauricular septum and interventricular septum. When the right auricle receives the impure blood from different parts of the body, at the same time left auricle also receives the pure or oxygenated blood from the lungs. During the time of a rhythmic contraction or phase of systole, phase of contraction, or it is also known as systole, during the time of auricular systole or phase of contraction, the right auricle, which consists of impure blood, is directly poured into the right ventricle chamber with the help of the openings of tricuspid valves. Means by the opening of tricuspid valves, the blood which is present in the right auricle is forced or poured into the chamber of right ventricle. At the same time, the pure blood which is present in the left auricular chamber is forced or poured into the left ventricle chamber. When that process takes place during the time of auricular contraction or phase of systole. When the ventricular system, after completion of auricular systole, the ventricular systole takes place, and when the chamber of ventricles undergoes the phase of contraction or phase of systole, the blood which is present in the right ventricle enters into the pulmonary artery or pulmonary trunk, and it is poured or it is forced towards the lungs of towards the lobes of lungs for oxygenation. The initial openings of the pulmonary artery or pulmonary trunk, which are present in the right ventricle, the upper right corner of the right ventricle, it closes with the help of three flap-like walls, and these three flap-like walls are known as semilunar walls. Means by the opening of semilunar walls, the blood which is present in the right ventricle is forced in the pulmonary artery or pulmonary trunk and forwards towards the lobes of lungs for its oxygenation. At the same time, the pure blood which is present in the left ventricle, when the ventricular contraction takes place, the pure blood which is present in the left ventricle enters into the systemic aorta by the openings of semilunar walls which are present at the base of systemic aorta, which is present at the right corner of the ventricular left ventricles with the help of openings of semilunar walls. And that blood is when the left ventricular chamber undergoes the phase of contraction, the blood which is present in it enters into the systemic aorta, and with the help of that systemic aorta, it distributes or propels into the different parts of the body. That's why the total chamber of the ventricle, that is right ventricle and left ventricles, are known as propelling chambers. The auricles are called receiving chamber, just like ventricles are known as propelling chambers. And when that process of ventricular contraction takes place, the AV walls which are present on AV septum. AV septum means auriculoventricular septum, which is present in between the auricle and ventricle, which possesses, means in the right side of the heart, means in between the right auricle and right ventricle, three AV walls or tricuspid valves are present, and these tricuspid valves are present in the AV septum in between the right auricle and right ventricle. And just like the two walls are present in the left side of the heart in between the left auricle and left ventricles. When the ventricular contraction takes place, the AV walls, means tricuspid wall or bicuspid or mitral walls, are encloses the openings of AV openings. Auricular ventricular openings are closed after the completion, after the ventricular contraction. Means when ventricular contraction starts, the walls the tricuspid and bicuspid valves become closed, and the blood which is present in right ventricle enters into the pulmonary trunk, and the blood which is present in the left ventricle enters into the systemic aorta. And systemic aorta by the openings of the walls which are present at its base, and these two that is pulmonary, opening up pulmonary trunk as well as opening up systemic aorta, both that major blood vessels, major blood arteries are covered with the three flap like structures, and these three flap like structures are known as semilunar walls. The walls which are present in the tricuspid, the walls which are present in the structure of heart, that is tricuspid wall, bicuspid wall or mitral wall, semilunar walls, plays an important role to avoid the backward flow of blood after the ventricular relaxation. Semilunar walls plays an important role. It also prevents the backward flow of blood from pulmonary aorta or pulmonary artery to the right ventricle and the systemic aorta to the left ventricles. Means the role of the walls is to prevent the backward flow of blood. Means the simple meaning of that, the function of the tricuspid wall, bicuspid wall, it plays a unidirectional flow of the blood during the time of ventricular contraction and systole and diastolic phase. The inferior vena cava, which opens into the right auricle, covers or it possesses a wall which is known as Eustachian wall. Means where Eustachian wall is present? Eustachian wall is present in the inferior vena cava, the end of the inferior vena cava, which opens into the right auricles or the wall of right auricles. That's about the internal structure of human heart.